He didn't run. He walked out like the city belonged to him. Hours later, his face was on murals and protest flags. People called him a hero. But no one realized what that one bullet would unleash. And what happened next, even Travis couldn't have predicted. But let's start at the beginning. The bullet sliced through the thick evening air of the Waldorf Astoria courtyard at exactly 7:43 p.m. It wasn't just a shot. It was an exclamation mark at the end of a slow, unraveling sentence written in sweat, rage, and loneliness. Senator Charles Palantine, a polished man with a smile built for television and a campaign rooted in promises of urban reform, was midway through a handshake with a donor when the shot struck him clean through the chest. He staggered backward, crimson blooming through his ivory shirt, and collapsed onto the marble floor in a twisting motion that would be slowed down, analyzed, and replayed on every screen in America for years to come. The air froze. People stood suspended in confusion. Somewhere nearby, a woman let out a single scream. Sharp, high-pitched, the kind that slices through time. 12 feet away stood Travis Bickle. His posture was stiff, eyes locked in a trance-like stare, hand trembling as it lowered the pistol still smoking in his grip. Beads of sweat mixed with gunpowder residue trailed down his temple. For a moment, the world didn't breathe. Then, it exploded. Secret Service agents lunged toward the senator's body. Guests scrambled. Security barked into radios. Aides pushed others down for cover. But amidst the chaos, Travis did the unthinkable. He didn't run. He turned and walked. Not briskly, not frantically, but with a strange, quiet calm, as if stepping out of a bad movie screening. 3 steps into the hallway, he passed a confused bellhop, frozen with a tray of champagne. 5 more steps, and he exited through a side door meant for kitchen staff. By the time police had sealed the perimeter, Travis was already several blocks away, fading into the blur of city noise, sirens echoing behind him. The escape made no sense. The building was crawling with law enforcement, cameras, checkpoints, federal agents. And yet, within 24 hours, news stations were already reporting that Travis had vanished into the system. Theories sprouted like weeds. Some said he'd bribed a guard. Others claimed he was part of a larger extremist cell. A few believed the government itself had orchestrated it to reset the political landscape. The most popular thread online insisted the entire security grid went dark for exactly 14 seconds after the shot. A police radio had gone silent. A vital hallway camera shorted out, and a power relay had briefly surged at the Waldorf's main substation. No one could prove anything. But that night, as chaos swirled and media scrambled for answers, a single image began circulating. It was blurry, clearly scanned from a Polaroid, possibly taken from a 3rd-story fire escape in Alphabet City. In it, Travis stood bathed in the pale orange glow of a burning trash barrel, his eyes wide and glassy, his hands tucked into the sleeves of his grimy green coat. The camera had caught something. Not just a man, but a moment of eerie stillness, as if time had paused to take a breath. Someone posted the image anonymously, tagged it, the cleaner. Within hours, it went viral. In the following days, the photo was transformed into a stencil. Spray painted onto brick walls across Brooklyn, Lower East Side, and Harlem. Then it was screen printed onto shirts sold on the steps of subway stations. Eventually, someone turned it into a mural on the side of a condemned tenement in the Bronx. 30 feet high, Travis's face glowing like a saint, neon eyes peering into some distant truth. He was no longer just a man. He was a myth in real time. And New York, teetering on the edge of another blackout summer, embraced the myth before it understood the man. In that first week, as politicians pointed fingers and the nation watched in stunned horror, there was one thing no one could explain. How Travis Bickle had stepped into the jaws of the beast, pulled the trigger, and walked away without a trace. But the real question, the one nobody dared ask, was far worse. What if he was never supposed to be caught? By Thursday afternoon, Union Square was no longer just a park. It was a stage, a cauldron of voices, bodies, signs, fists in the air. The chant started with a single voice, raw, cracked, half-crazed, then grew into hundreds. "One bullet cleaned the filth," again. "One bullet cleaned the filth." City officials tried to ignore it. Reporters on WNYC hesitated, calling it spontaneous public unrest. But the footage told another story. Skateboarders, veterans, nurses, students, all shouting in unison. The city's frustration had found a new vocabulary, and his name was Travis. That same evening, a short clip leaked online. It was audio, muffled, shaky, of a man's voice, drenched in solitude and disgust. "Someday, a real rain will come and wash all this scum off the streets." It was him, Travis. Someone had gotten their hands on his journal tapes. Within hours, the audio was playing in underground clubs, stitched into EDM sets, remixed into trap loops and punk songs. You couldn't walk through Bushwick or Lower East Side without hearing Travis's voice laced with static and fury. New graffiti took shape overnight. "Travis Lives." "Reclaim the Night." "Cleaners Wanted." At first, city officials dismissed it as urban theater, a phase, a meme. But by Friday night, a mattress fire lit up a block in Harlem. By Sunday, 3 police cars had been torched in Red Hook. The mayor, sweat glistening beneath his collar at a press conference, called for calm and unity in the face of lawlessness. But no one listened. Not the press, not the people, and certainly not the police, who were abandoning their posts at record speed, underpaid, overstressed, unarmed against a movement that didn't even seem real. Meanwhile, Travis walked. He was seen, not always clearly, not always credibly, in nearly every borough over the next few weeks. A grainy video showed him in the Bronx handing sandwiches to a shivering group of unhoused veterans. Another clip, blurred and shaky, caught him slamming a man against a Queens Alley wall after witnessing a woman scream. And yet, no arrest, no confirmed sighting by law enforcement, just stories. People fed him, protected him, hid him, not out of loyalty to a man, but to the legend he'd become. He'd shaved his head again. The mohawk was back, ragged and wild, like a war banner from a forgotten army. No one knew where he slept, but one train operator swore he found Travis curled in the back of an R train at 2:30 a.m., face pale under the flickering fluorescent light. Another claimed she saw him disappear into the tunnels near West 4th, trailing smoke and silence. His presence was everywhere, and nowhere. Posters of his face were plastered over shuttered bodegas and police precincts. Instagram pages shared stylized clips of his quotes, filtered in grain and crimson. A popular meme showed him standing over Palentine's body with the words, "He did what we were too civilized to do." But underneath the euphoria was something darker. Not everyone worshipped him. An op-ed in the Times titled "The Messiah Nobody Wanted" called Travis a hallucination in denim and blood, the byproduct of a city too tired to think clearly. A retired detective, interviewed on live television, muttered, "He's not a prophet, he's a virus." Still, people followed. Protests turned into fire. Fire turned into something worse. Someone hurled a Molotov into a luxury condo lobby on the Upper East Side. A police horse was killed during a stampede in Brooklyn. Banks were tagged with stencils of Travis's mohawk and the words, "Rain is coming." And Travis, if he even still existed in a singular physical sense, had become something the city couldn't grab hold of. He was a ghost, a saint, a stain. And somewhere, beneath a city choking on its own rage, He walked silently through the wreckage, still carrying the same gun, still muttering those same lines to himself under his breath, but no one stopped to ask, did he ever want to be followed? By mid-July, the heat had turned mean. New York shimmered with that ugly, aggressive warmth that made the buildings sweat and the people snap. The asphalt on 2nd Avenue blistered and cracked, swallowing heels and burning through cheap tires. Garbage piled high on sidewalks. The sanitation union had walked off again, this time refusing to return until the mayor publicly denounced the Bickle hysteria. He didn't. He couldn't. By then, Travis wasn't just a man. He was woven into the nervous system of the city. Bridge takeovers became common. Protesters, faces covered in bandanas and grease paint, stormed the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges holding banners stitched from tarp and stolen street signs. At their center was always the same image, the blood-red silhouette of Travis Bickle, mohawk jagged like a lightning bolt, his eyes blacked out by thick brush strokes. They called him the Storm. Inside the NYPD, the cracks widened into chasms. Some officers, disgusted with how the city handled the fallout, turned in their badges. Others went rogue, forming autonomous patrols in riot gear, calling themselves the Bickle Line. They tagged their vests with white tape reading, "Real Cleaners." They didn't follow orders. They followed ideology. Police stations were firebombed, patrol cars stolen, painted with the word "scum," and parked on Wall Street. On Broadway, an off-Broadway play titled The King of Scum opened to standing ovations and national controversy. A gritty, fictionalized retelling of the Travis myth, it portrayed him as a doomed urban saint, broken, furious, pure. The actor wore a tattered army jacket and delivered monologues from inside a blood-slicked phone booth. It sold out for 6 months straight. But the real Travis? He was unraveling. People still caught glimpses of him, not in public, not anymore, but in shadows. A man matching his build and gait was seen pacing near the old piers in Red Hook. Another claimed he watched Travis sob in a subway tunnel for 10 straight minutes, rocking back and forth, clutching something wrapped in a soaked American flag. He had stopped speaking aloud. When approached, he turned away. He communicated in fragments now, scribbled on bathroom stalls, napkins, paper scraps shoved into payphones. They don't see me, they see the rage. I am the virus, not the cure. Rain doesn't cleanse, it drowns. The city had taken his image and twisted it into something vast and unrecognizable. He'd lit a fuse, but the explosion was still going, and he was trapped in the center of the blast radius. Teenagers built Molotovs in his name, filmed it, posted it online. They wore army coats like uniforms. They quoted his diary as gospel. One night, a senator's widow was found dead in her Upper East Side brownstone. Suicide. Her husband had been one of Palentine's campaign chairs. She had received her 19th anonymous death threat the day before. Travis read about it on a newspaper crumpled in a trash can. He stared at the headline for nearly an hour. Then he walked away. In the digital void, he became even larger. Social media flooded with AI-generated images of Travis as a saint, as a monster, as the president. A fringe movement began calling him Saint Scum. YouTubers debated whether he was a necessary evil or a cautionary tale, but the man himself was cracking. A viral video surfaced. Someone had filmed Travis standing on the Williamsburg Bridge just past midnight, shirt clinging to his body, looking down at the glow of riots crawling across Brooklyn like fireflies. He was whispering into a pocket recorder, unaware he was being watched. His voice was thin, broken. They made me a symbol. I was just trying to disappear. And yet the city would not let him go. Everything he had once hated, the filth, the confusion, the shouting in the streets, had now draped itself in his image. He couldn't walk 10 blocks without seeing his own silhouette bleeding down a wall. His face was now the mask behind which 1,000 others raged. He had become the very chaos he swore to cleanse. And deep inside, Travis Bickle knew the worst truth of all. He didn't control the story anymore. The city had become him, and it didn't want him back. The last footage of Travis Bickle was caught on a security drone above Central Park. He was lying on a bench, face bruised, muttering to no one. Hours later, a bomb went off at City Hall. No one claimed responsibility, but the manifesto found near the site quoted one line: "Here is a man who would not take it anymore." The government cracked down. The city locked up over 300 protest leaders. The Bickle murals were scrubbed from walls. The mayor signed a new surveillance bill called the Palantine Act, a cruel irony. No one ever found Travis. Some say he died in the sewer tunnels. Others claim he joined a monastery in Idaho. A few believe he never existed. But every year, on the anniversary of the shot, candles line the courthouse steps, and somewhere, in a basement of a boy raised in the chaos, hangs that old poster. One bullet cleaned the filth. But now, the eyes of Travis on that wall don't look righteous. They look scared, maybe even ashamed, and finally terribly human.